All right, welcome back. My guest host, Tally, she's back with us, and today we're looking at, it's Tuesday, July 13th. Come follow me, quick takes of Doctrine and Covenants 78. So this is a really great section that at first glance, you would think, how does this apply to me? Because when we look at it, we see that they're talking about what's called the United Firm, or it's also referred to as the United Order, which is the building up of the church and the storehouses for the financial stability of the church, right? And so as we look at it, we might think, well, I don't need to worry about the financial stability of the church. The church is just fine. But if we look at this as more of a spiritual growth or a spiritual stabilization, I think we can pull out a lot of important things. We have a list up here of some important verses, but before we get to that, I just want to look at Doctrine and Covenants 97, verse 21. If you go there in your scriptures, we see the Lord is asking in this section to build up Zion. And in 97, in verse 21, the Lord gives us another definition or description of what Zion is. And he says, "Therefore, verily, thus saith the Lord, let Zion rejoice, for this is Zion, the pure in heart." And then he says, "Therefore, let Zion rejoice, while all the wicked shall mourn." So if we think of Zion as not just that city of Independence, Missouri, and we start to see Zion as us becoming pure in heart, we can start to frame this section to help us better understand what we need to do or how it applies to us so that we can become that pure in heart, right? And the promises are so incredible for those that are able to become pure in heart, right? That's our goal. And so as we look at this, let's just think about what can I learn to help me become Zion? And so there are different aspects. I wonder what it looks like or what it means, and maybe you could help me understand this a little bit better. But what does pure in heart mean? Or what does it look like? Any thoughts?
Golly. Must mean I'm not exactly pure in heart if I don't know what it means. But it's hard. I know it. Isn't it one of the Beatitudes as well? Blessed are the pure in heart.
I think so, yeah.
I believe it's one for they shall see God. I don't remember. I get them mixed up sometimes, but I know it's in there. As far as what it means to be pure in heart, I think above all else, I believe it is about having your heart knit with the Lord's in some way, because He is the epitome of purity.
Yeah,
He is. And if we are as closely tied to Him as we can be, I think we become more pure in heart as well. Whatever that means exactly, I don't know if I have a good definition, but I feel like it's associated with being close to the Lord.
And like knowing His will, and doing His will. I think it's a very important point. I think that's really it's important to remember. I think, and going along with that, we could add in maybe some other aspects, is like developing those Christ-like attributes.
Definitely.
And that helps us knit our heart with the Lord, right?
Yeah.
Because as we become more like Him and we become more like God, then we kind of like tie ourselves to Him, right? Because we're doing the things that they would do if they were here. Yeah. I love in the New Testament when they're talking about Nathaniel, who becomes one of the 12 apostles, right? The Lord sees him and says, if we look in Matthew, he says that Nathaniel is a true Israelite, that he's a man without guile. And I just think like that's a person that's pure in heart, right? And guile means that they're without deception, or they're very trustworthy, or they have high integrity. So for me, that's one thing that I think of all the time when it says that I need to become pure in heart. Like I need to develop that kind of attitude where I'm just trustworthy, and people look at me and they're like, oh, if you ask Casey to do something, he'll do it. Yeah. Right. And do it to the best of his ability. He won't lie. And so for me, that's one big thing that I've seen in my life of how I want to become more pure in heart. What do you guys think? Anything else that we would add to this? What does it mean to be pure in heart? What does it look like? How do we do it in our lives? So let's jump into the scriptures and let's find out what are some of the things that the Lord says we can do to help us become more pure in heart, to help us establish Zion or make ourselves Zion. And so we just noted a few things here that as we read through these verses, this section, of just that kind of like a list of things that the Lord says. And we're just going to talk about a couple of them. So I'll take this side if you'll take that side.
Sure.
So verse 2 says that we should counsel with the Lord. Verse 3 talks about how we need to help the poor and the needy. 7 talks about do what the Lord commands. 8 is we need to seek to glorify God and not ourselves. And then 10 talks about turning away from Satan and not letting him blind us. And which one do you have?
And then over here, we have verse 14 talking about trusting in God's providence that we'll be able to overcome trials and hardship. To verse 18, to be of good cheer, which I think is always important. 19, to be thankful. And then 21, to be a wise steward in whatever it is the Lord has entrusted to you.
And so we'll get into these in just a second. I just think it's interesting, kind of some of these words that the Lord uses and how does that apply better to us? For example, like providence, what is the Lord's providence? Like, and so that's just a question to throw out there. Maybe you can think about that a little bit more. And then a steward, what does it mean to be a steward? What does it mean to be a wise steward? But we talked about a few of them that we wanted to talk about a little bit more. And so I'll let you go first, Tally.
Yeah, actually, one of the ones that stood out to me was not in this list that we'd come up with. It was actually from verse 11. I'm going to go ahead and read it. Doctrine and Covenants 78:11. Wherefore, a commandment I give unto you to prepare and organize yourselves by a bond or everlasting covenant that cannot be broken. So in regards to what it means to be pure in heart, I think something that is included in being pure in heart is not only making covenants with the Lord, which he's asked us to do, but remaining true to those covenants throughout our lives, which we covenant, essentially when we make covenants with God, we're covenanting to be obedient. And a lot of what he asks us to do is to help other people, which is kind of interesting that it's in this section where they're talking about organizing the storehouse to be able to take care of the poor in at this time, which is still something that is in force today, actually. Being able to tend to the poor in our areas, fast offerings or Bishop Storehouse, the DI, all these programs that the church runs so that we can take care of those in need. And that's something that we covenant to do with the Lord, to mourn with those that mourn, comfort those that need comfort.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one. It wasn't on this list, but it did stand out to me, the importance of making and keeping covenants the best we can with him.
Yeah, I love that. I always go back to that quote from President Nelson where he says, the greatest compliment you can receive in this life is that of a covenant keeper, right? Which implies that we've made covenants. And then just living up to those covenants. And so maybe that's part of why it's part of the greatest compliment is because it's helping us to become pure in heart. Right? It's leading us down that path to become Zion. Yeah, very cool. I love that. One that I wanted to just kind of reference a little bit is this verse 19, be thankful. So let's just read that one. It says, and he who receiveth all things with thankfulness shall be made glorious. And the things of this earth shall be added unto him, even 100-fold, yea more. When I was on my mission a little while ago, I remember sitting in a general conference session. I was in Brazil, and so it was early in the morning, right? Because the time difference is like 4 or 5 hours, I think. So this was an early morning session. And I remember sitting there. Everybody was dead tired because it's so early. But President Monson came up, and he started talking about gratitude. And I remember one quote that stuck out to me. He said that gratitude is the key to opening the gates of heaven. And that's just always been so vivid for me to remember that. And I've seen that so much in my life of how gratitude and thankfulness to the Lord can help us make it through trials, make it through difficulties. And I feel like that's one way that we can help me at least become even more pure in heart, is just remembering to be grateful. It's not only to the Lord and everything he gives me, but thankful for the people in my life, the opportunities I have, just thankful for everything that kind of goes into the wonderful life that I have. And so for me, that's one that stood out. Any other ones stand out to you?
Actually, right before, I love that one, by the way. Right before it is verse 18, and it talks about being of good cheer, but there was also another part of it that I really enjoyed. I'll read it. Verse 18, you cannot bear all things now, nevertheless, be of good cheer, for I will lead you along. The kingdom is yours, and the blessings thereof are yours, and the riches of eternity are yours. I did appreciate that it says to be of good cheer. I think that sometimes when we're struggling, it may seem hard to understand why being of good cheer is something we can do, but I think when we are striving to be pure in heart, we can be of good cheer regardless of our circumstances. And then the secondary in this verse as well, it says, be of good cheer, for I will lead you along. I was thinking about this in regards to being pure in heart, and I realized that one attribute that I would say goes along with this purity is allowing the Lord to lead us along. I think sometimes, I know for myself, I get caught up in trying to figure things out on my own. I like to be independent. I like to solve problems. And And sometimes I think it's almost to a fault where I kind of almost don't really ask the Lord to help me because I feel like I can figure it out. And I think something that he wants is to be involved in our lives. And I know that if I allow him to lead me along, I will be so much more productive than if I just do it on my own.
Yeah.
So that was something, 2 parts of that verse that I really did like. And then all the promises that go with it. The kingdom is yours, the blessings are yours, the riches of eternity are yours. I mean, how are those things not appealing, really?
Right.
All of it, pretty much everything that he has is ours as we come to him and allow him to lead us through whatever it is. And I think someone who's pure in heart is humble enough to allow the Lord to lead them. And so that's something I know I can work on, is letting him lead me, because I think it will help in the future for me to become more pure in heart.
Isn't it cool how the Lord is so good at incentivizing us?
Yes.
He knows the good incentives. He's like, hey, you want the kingdom? You want these blessings? You want riches of eternity? Do this. I love that. And I also love that he gives us like this opportunity, and he's just kind of understanding here. He says, and ye cannot bear all things now. He's like, I know you can't do it. Like, I see you, I know you, and I know that you're not going to be able to do everything. But let me help you.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of that, heard that poem, Footsteps in the Sand?
Yeah.
It reminds me of that one, right? Where you see 2 sets of footprints, and then after a while you only see one, and the person asks the Lord, like, well, why did you leave me? And he said, no, that's when I carried you.
Yeah.
And he says, so if we're willing to let him pick us up, he will carry us to where we want to be, into all these wonderful blessings. I love that. So for you guys, which one stands out to you? Would you add any other? So Tally added that verse 11 here, which was an incredible insight that we didn't even list up here, right? So this list is just a preliminary list. There's so many more things that we might find in this section about what can help us to become pure in heart or help us to become Zion. I know that as we seek after that and we do those things and we strive to become pure in heart, the Lord really, he does carry us. He helps us so much and in so many ways that it's impossible to explain it. But I know that he does it, and that as we allow him that opportunity, he's going to work miracles in our lives. Anything you would add to this before we end?
Actually, I had one thought in regards to just gratitude in general. It's something about the story that you shared. It reminded me of in the book of Moroni, chapter 10, verses 3-5, the big, this is how you know this is true. Mm-hmm. I always found it interesting that before it gets to the asking and you'll receive, he first says, before all else, remember the tender mercies of the Lord from the time of Adam all the way to now. And I kind of associate that with gratitude. If we really take a second to recognize just how much the Lord is involved in our lives, it brings this heart of gratitude into us that then allows us to feel the Spirit and to hear what the Lord wants us to do, or to find answers in that case, or whatever it is. I appreciated your thought about gratitude, because I think we have to have it to be able to have a fullness of the Spirit. If we are not grateful, then we're missing a big part of the purpose of the Lord.
Yeah, so true. It's a great insight. And I just wonder, as you were talking about that, is there I wonder if there's a common thread between all of this in terms of coming to become like, or pure in heart. Is there a common thread that everything you could just be like, this ties into this, and they all tie into the same thing? So maybe that's the inspirational inquiry for this week, for today at least. What is there a common thread? And if so, what's that common thread? What can we see interwoven between all of these different aspects that help us become pure in heart? And I don't know the answer to that.
Me neither.
So if anybody has thoughts on that, please let us know. Another inspirational inquiry that you could have as you go through this section is maybe, what do these verses teach us about covenants and blessings? Tally told us a little bit about covenants, and covenants are so deep that we could just dive in and be there forever. But what do these verses teach us, or this section teaches about covenants and blessings? So we're excited to jump into 78, and we hope you have a good experience with it. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.